Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of the Contrarian. Delighted to welcome the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, Representative Adam Smith from Washington. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. So as we speak, the process is going forward in the Senate on this reconciliation bill. And not clear whether they're going to reach agreement, but wiping away all of the bird bath talk and the amendments and so on, is this bill fixable in your mind? Is there anything that would make it acceptable to the American people?
I don't think so. I mean, it's got all kinds of contradictory aspects to it. I mean, the biggest of which is around the fundamental question of fiscal responsibility and how do we feel about the debt and the deficit. And that is a very difficult, very complicated debate. I mean, the bottom line is the American people have come to demand $2 of goods and services for every dollar in taxes that they are willing to pay. And there's no particular way to square that circle. Certainly, elected officials and candidates have not helped with that by promising to deliver $2 of goods and services for every dollar of taxes they ask for. So people come to expect it because too many people have told them they can get it. But we are in a bit of a fiscal mess. There's no two ways about that, in my opinion. I do not buy into modern monetary theory. We will not walk down that road for the moment unless you want to later. But we got a problem with that. And Republicans have spent a lot of time telling us about that problem. And now they have a bill that's going to add anywhere from $2 to $4 trillion to the deficit, depending upon your estimate. And in the idiotic world of, deciding that logic doesn't matter, their argument is the primary reason that this bill costs that much is it extends the Trump tax cuts. So, they say that can't really count because, if we don't act, the taxes are going to go up. And it's like, it all counts. I mean, it's the way accounting works. And if you want to say it's a tax increase because we're going back to the tax rates we had in 2017, and the last 4 years of the Obama administration, by the way, were very solid from an economic growth standpoint. So they're locked into that. So they're passing a bill that's going to massively increase the debt and the deficit. They have no intention of changing that. At the same time, the places they've decided to go to try to save money can roughly be summed up as food and health care for poor people. That is where they are making their largest cuts, substantial cuts. But it's not actually getting us to a more fiscally responsible place. Now, I know the tagline for Democrats is, and I've even said it myself from time to time, they're cutting funding for, poor people to get health care and food so that they can pay for tax cuts for rich people, which is kind of true. The only flaw is that we'd still be massively in debt even if they didn't do the tax cuts for rich people. So I think it's bad policy. And the final piece on this is, in terms of the details of implementing policy, Trump doesn't care. He wants his bill. At this point, he doesn't care what's in it. Well, he wants his tax cuts extended. The details are irrelevant. He just wants to pass it. So they are rushing to jam this thing through without a great deal of legislative thought.
Now, you have some very right-wing members in your body. I won't call them conservatives because last time I checked, conservatism was supposed to be about fiscal sobriety. But you have a great number of them who are saying, there's no way we're going to vote for this. There's no way we're going to vote for them. Do you expect that you're going to have a big fight when it comes back to the House? Or as they like to say in the Senate, we're just going to jam the House? What do you expect?
I mean, I think it's more a matter of Trump is just going to jam Congress because as we're having this conversation, and we'll see in the next day or two, a lot of senators are saying, Republican senators are saying that they don't want to vote for it. But look, I mean, Trump's got a very simple equation. I want it, do it because I'm asking. And this is a Republican Party that has very much become a cult of personality. Yes. Trump dominates. He wants it, he gets it. And we've seen that certainly happen in the House. I mean, you've got all these Republican members in the House who have spent years waxing philosophic and, emotional about the debt and the deficit. That's terrible. It's awful. It's horrible. I will not saddle my children with the debt. It's terrible. Yeah. And now they're all out there voting for a bill to add $3 trillion to the debt because they don't want to do anything other than what Donald Trump tells them to do. So my guess is they'll all roll over eventually and vote for it. But we'll see in the next week or so.
Right. Speaking of rolling over, this president has gone beyond really even the trend line in presidents in recent years, which has been to expand presidential use of authority without the consent of Congress. This president didn't even bother to consult with Congress and entered us, for all intents and purposes, in an ongoing war with a very high risk of escalation, very high risk of further involvement. Are your colleagues prepared either prospectively in the short term or maybe prospectively in the long term to try to really take back congressional power in some fashion? This is a very dangerous move, particularly with a president who is saying all sorts of things that just aren't provable or
Right.
frankly aren't true.
Yeah. Look, I mean, yes, I mean, this president is dangerous for that reason. He creates his own reality. But it is very difficult for Congress to get in the way of presidential authority on these issues. And in this particular area, I don't know that President Trump has done anything more than what a number of other presidents have done. I mean, Bill Clinton, started bombing in Serbia even after Congress had turned down what was a tie vote. But, if a tie vote, it doesn't pass. We had a resolution to support military action to protect Kosovo. It tied, so it failed. He still did it anyway. There was no vote in Congress when President Obama went into Libya. Going way back, Reagan did Grenada, I guess, and Panama without congressional approval. As a matter of policy, going all the way back to Thomas Jefferson and the Barbary Coast pirates, when the president decides to use the military, he uses it. Now, Congress can use a variety of different tools at that point to try to get him to stop using it, as when appropriations funding was pulled for the Vietnam War. But stopping him from starting is extraordinarily difficult, because the president does have his Article II commander-in-chief, right of self-defense powers. What we can do is we can sort of raise public concern about this so that the president feels that it's not something that the people will support. We saw this with President Obama in Syria back in 2013 when Syria had used chemical weapons and President Obama was threatening to bomb Syria. And there was quite a bit of hue and cry from Congress and elsewhere, don't do it. And he didn't. So we can use public pressure using legislative language, and I could walk down the weeds of how that goes here. I won't. It's really difficult to do it legislatively.
Right. Now, one of the powers Congress does have, as you alluded to, is the power of the purse. And I do remember a debate in recent years over the NDAA, that's the National Defense Authorization Act, about putting language in there that would not allow funds to be used for example, a war in Iran. Is there any appetite, do you think, for some attempts at belt and suspenders, or at least a requirement that he fulfill the terms of the War Powers Act before funds can be authorized? Is there any mechanism in there that is possible?
It's unlikely for two reasons. One, the Republicans control Congress. They're not going to do anything that Trump doesn't want. But two is back to what I was talking about earlier. Let's say we wanted to do that. What would that language look like? And the trap you get in has a couple, I think it's 3 steps here. First of all, you say, well, we want to make sure that the president can't start a military conflict against, in this case, Iran, but it could be other countries as well. And then people come back and say, well, what if, just hypothetically, Iran has 5 nuclear weapons on the launch pad getting ready to launch at us? Are you saying that you would require the president to get congressional approval before he could act on that? Well, no, of course, the president has his inherent right of self-defense. Okay, so how do you split that exactly? And that gets you to the next step. So you write a sentence that says, well, the president can only do this in self-defense. And the people who want to restrict the president will say that gives him way too much leeway, way too much. And then, depending on how you write it, the people on the other side who want the president to have authority will say, no, the way you wrote it actually restricts him too much. And I've seen instances with the exact same legislative language. Both sides are arguing that it hurts their argument. It's really hard to come up with language that can anticipate what circumstances are out there or define words. I mean, what does the word defense, mean? It depends on the context. So it's really difficult.
It's why it's a good idea to elect presidents who are constitutionally and morally responsible because,
That is what I always say. The way I put it
yes,
is that is why you have to be so careful about who you give
yes.
the job to.
Absolutely. Last topic I want to cover with you is the management of the Defense Department. We have a Secretary of Defense who obviously was not up for the job. His idea of a press conference is to berate the
Right.
reporters. How concerned are you about just the functioning of the Pentagon, the lines of command, the sense of order there? They seem to be, the Department of Culture Wars or the Department of sucking up to Trump rather than the Department of Defense. What's your estimate of what's going on over there?
I am concerned about all of those things. And by the way, good summary. That's a good summary of exactly what I'm concerned about. Pete Hegseth is not really qualified to run things. He's not a great manager based on his resume to date. He speaks well. He's been on TV for a while, so he can do that, but his management skills are somewhat limited. He's insecure. We've seen this in a lot of firings of people close to him and sort of palace intrigue where he doesn't trust his staff, that they're undercutting him, so he fires them. And that creates a bad culture at the Pentagon. So you've got that. And then you've got the things that you mentioned that I think are most concerning is that Trump wants people who are loyal to Trump. And that's not the same thing as being good at your job. For instance, we're seeing this in the Intel post Iran strike.
Right.
Trump wants the intel that fits his narrative. Don't tell him something he doesn't want to hear. And people will learn that lesson. Either they'll get fired or they'll leave because they don't want to work like that, or they will adapt and they will stop doing the most efficient, effective job possible, and they will focus on simply sucking up to Trump. And then, yeah, the right-wing culture war is a big thing. And look, I'm not fond of the left-wing culture war that we've had to deal with, particularly in places like Seattle, King County for the last 10 or 12 years. I think it went too far in a variety of different directions. But now we've got Hegseth launching a right-wing culture war. I mean, they're banning books about Jackie Robinson. They're scrubbing the internet of any of the word gay. They banned transgender troops from serving, even though they have served incredibly capably in a lot of instances. So they seem to be very focused on that culture war that is a distraction from doing the job. Now, I'll close all that with one little positive thing. The service secretaries, Army, Navy, Air Force, solid people. I've had meetings with them. They've testified before us, seem to know what they're doing. Chairman Kane, Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff, he was the least qualified chairman ever picked because, he'd been out of the military for a while. He was in the Guard for like the last 12 years. The normal level of expertise required, he did not meet, but he's a really good person, smart person, doing a good job. So that's good. Deputy Secretary of Defense Feinberg seems to know what he's doing. There are just enough people over at the Pentagon now who seem to be really focused on doing things the right way. It gives me some hope. I don't know. Well, I don't know if there's enough or not. There's a few because we got reform to do. We're working on the Armed Services Committee, bipartisan effort at acquisition reform. So there's things we could do, but it's going to be tough to get around the loyalty first approach that Trump and Hegseth take.
Well, to end on a more positive note, I am at least gratified that the culture within the services, as you say, is very strong. It's pro-democracy, it's pro-truth, it's pro-honor. And I think we have to commend both in terms of mission completion in this episode, but also the integrity of, as you say, the uniformed people who may be the only ones who are telling us the truth at any given time. So there's at least that, and we should applaud them for that. Thank you so much, Congressman. We'll look forward to having you back again. I'm sure it's going to continue to be an interesting time. Thanks so much.
Yeah. One final sentence.
Yeah.
The bombing campaign in Iran, no other military in the world could have done that with the precision and
Absolutely.
capability that we did. And that's something that we should be grateful for and proud of.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good to see you.